Hey guys, and welcome to the first official part of Labby Dragon's big fat pasty tutorial. We're gonna start with just basic circular pasties. Just the most basic thing you can do, which is not to say basic like bad or anything. They will come out absolutely gorgeous, I promise you. Almost every time. I have had to scrap things and give up on it in my time, so it does happen, and it happens to everyone. So don't be upset if it does happen to you. Hopefully it's not your first pair. I didn't mess up my first pair too bad, so I have confidence that if I can do it, all of you can do it. So just a little of what you're gonna want today. So for these, I'm working with a cotton. You can work with a stretch material. And if you do work with a stretch material, instead of using the heat and bond like we're going to, you actually can use hot glue or fabric Mod Podge. Hot glue is a lot cheaper, but fabric Mod Podge in just a big jar will last you quite a while if this is the main kind of project you're doing with it. So, pros and cons of each way of doing it. But today I will be working with cotton. You may want to pick a solid for your first, just if you don't have 100% of an idea, or if you just have a color idea. And those steps will be exactly like what I'm doing today, except that what I also want to show in this first tutorial is how to use a patterned fabric with like a cute character or something that you want to try to get on there. If you're using a solid, you don't have to worry about where you're placing things, but I just thought it might be helpful if at the same time as we're learning just a basic pasty, we could also learn what is in the sewing world called a fussy cut, when you cut something so that things line up, or so that you get Hello Kitty right in the middle of whatever project you're working on. It's called a fussy cut. That may be more of a quilting term than a garment making term. I'm not sure. I think I learned that term from my grandmother. I'm sure I heard her say it at some point. But that's, if you ever hear somebody say that they're like fussy cutting, or if they say, oh well, you will have to fussy cut it, that's what they mean. So I'm gonna use this cotton. I'm gonna use buckram as my base, and I am going to use heat and bond to put my layers together. So we will also need an iron. And a pencil. You will want a pencil, and you will want your circle templates. Alright. I'll see you on the hands side of the tutorial. It's a weird thing to call it, the hands side of the tutorial, but the part where you see my hands and we do things. Alright. Be right back. So your first quest is going to be to download, print out, and cut out your circle templates. If that's not an option for you, I would suggest trying to find something circular that you can trace, and you'll have to do the step that I'm about to do with these templates, these pre-cut templates, but you'll have to figure out an item that is circular to trace, that is the size that you want. I found it easiest because I did have access to a printer, and still do, but did when I started doing this, and I just cut out the whole sheet. This is actually, and this is what I'm going to try to re-find and link you to, just because whoever, I promise it will be in the link, but the folks who put together this have absolutely been wonderful to my life, so I will absolutely link to, hopefully, this exact template. These are actually for buttons, for like picture buttons, but you've got, so you can see it's got sizes. So like this would be the finished size of button, but it's actually your cut line is 4 inches instead of 3.5. But really it's just sizes of circles, and it has a size I can remember and go back to every time, and that's what's important to me. And these have been absolutely lovely. So you get these all cut out, and that way if you end up wanting to produce these for friends in the business, or friends not in the business, you know, friends or whoever, or for sale, you will want varying sizes because everyone's bits are different sizes. Conveniently, mine are on camera. But so you start with what seems like an appropriate size. I am obviously not going to show you to show this off exactly, but like these are way too small for me. I know this because I've gone through this process before. But you can just hold them up and like, these are way too small. They wouldn't cover at all. But either this size or this size is actually slightly larger than the area that I'm wanting to cover. And so you want slightly larger because you will cone this and it will take away some of this diameter. So it will be slightly less than what it is. But yeah, so these are the sizes that work for me. I am going to work in my larger size today. And obviously, you know what, you know, there's no shame in, if you want like extreme coverage, just being like, it's almost the size of like a whole just pasted on bra. Cool, whatever you're comfortable with. Like, burlesque is very much about what you're comfortable with, and also you might not be making these for performances. You might be making these for the bedroom. I'm not judging, obviously not. I make these, I don't care how they get used, whatever purpose you want. So between what you're comfortable with, what your purpose in having them is, it's, you decide on the size that you're comfortable with, but generally the idea is to cover up your entire nipple, and just your nipple. But again, whatever you're comfortable with. Like I said, I'm going to use the slightly larger size here, which I have used recently to great effect, because the other size sometimes is not quite large enough. So once you have your size figured out, you have your template, it's already all cut out for you because you went ahead and cut everything out. You are going to take the paper side of your Heat and Bond. Heat and Bond is the brand. There may well be other versions of this, but Heat and Bond, as far as I know, is the most popular and the easiest to find. But on the paper side of your Heat and Bond, you just trace out your first circle, and then a second circle. Ta-da! Traced out. And then next step is you cut them out. I'm not going to make you watch me cut them out. And so I have cut out my circles in the size that I desire with my regular craft scissors, not my fabric scissors, because Heat and Bond is literally a sheet of glue. So if any scissors are getting gummed up, I want it to be these. So actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to fold and mark up my little sheets here. I was hoping this would work. I don't want to go get some chalk. But so that I can see, maybe, possibly, if I ever figure out what I'm doing and I don't always do this step, so that's why I seem like a raging lunatic. But so I have some intersecting lines here. And yes, they are on the paper, so they are going to go away before we cut, but this is actually going to be important. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother with this pain in the tuchus. And really just any little clever way you want to make some lines that denote where the center of the circle is. Because when you cut this to cone it, you're going to want to cut one whole quarter section. So from the center, or well, from the edge to the center. And that is why I am doing that step. I'm going to do the other one off camera. And the great news about having folded these is that even though they're now a little bit tinted, we are going to iron them flat anyway. What I want to kind of show here before I fit a massive iron onto this screen here, or what's going to seem like a massive iron. It's actually a very small iron as far as irons go. But you're going to want to iron onto the wrong side of your fabric. In this case, you know, the bright red, and you can see the character nicely, and then it's kind of whited on the back, and this isn't very pretty, so you know this is the back side. Sometimes with solid cottons, it can be hard to tell what is your front and what is your back, and sometimes I just use my best judgment and go for it, to be honest. But with stuff that has prints on the front, or even just sort of like colorations on the front, you can usually tell the right side from the wrong side very easily. And what I'm going to show you that I'm going to do is I want to get like just a cute little Hello Kitty on there. Sorry, let me angle this. That is, I think, as good as it's gonna get, but anyway. So I want my little Hello Kitty, and I want her kind of in the center, but I actually want her a little bit above center, because if I center her like right on her nose, I'll be folding over her body because I overlap my pieces. And even if you cut and sew, you'll actually lose more of her. So if you aim to have her more at the top, and as you can see, I'm using my lines to decide where that center is, to center her on it. And you can kind of see through the Heat and Bond. I believe you can see that on camera kind of well. I may give you a sort of a better top view here in a second, but I want to make a cut. I don't want to make anyone sick with moving the camera. But so you just want to take a look at where you want to place whatever design you're trying to place specifically, and trying to keep from folding too much of it over. So a little bit of her is gonna fold over, and actually it's going to overlap is the word I'm looking for. I'm sorry. So a little bit of her little bum here is gonna be overlapped. Once you actually have the piece and you're cutting into it, you can decide which piece is going on top. And to be honest, with pasties, the focus is not actually always on perfection, because, like, is that really what people are paying attention to? But that's gonna be for you to decide how much that's going to bother you, because it doesn't bother me any, because I usually perform in mine, and a little bit of a jump in the design there is really not gonna be noticeable when I'm dancing, just to be honest. So I'm gonna do that one, and then I'm actually there's multiple different Hello Kitties on here. There's the one that I just picked out where she's sitting down and she's holding a heart, because this is Valentine's Day fabric, somewhat appropriate. And there's also this Hello Kitty standing, and then there's actually also all these hearts that say Hello Kitty. This is a little bit of a wide print to try to get more than just her on there. There will be actually like little pieces, but there will not be a whole of anything else. And I'm actually, that's what I'm going for with this one. Like, I'm really focusing on getting Hello Kitty on there, and I can make a choice to make these asymmetrical. I can pick this little Hello Kitty who's standing around with the heart, and I can decide, you know, that's gonna be the next one. Or I can make a matching set, and I can pick the next little Hello Kitty sitting down with a heart, and I can just try to match them as much as possible, which is actually what I'm going to do today. So this is just a little closer image of how you can see, you can actually see patterns through the heat and bond a lot of the time, because it's very thin. So you can actually pick that out and fussy cut it that way. Sorry, I just wanted to give you a closer look at this so that you kind of see what's going on here. So, unfortunately, I do not own an ironing board right now. Luckily, while not ideal, it is actually acceptable to fold up a towel to protect your surface, usually like a linoleum or tile floor, maybe more so a tile floor, but linoleum. Generally, so long as there's the towel to protect the surface, and you are very, very careful with what you're doing with your iron, you're okay. Again, not ideal. This is not an ideal situation. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to iron the fabric a little bit before I even start putting my glue on. So again, being incredibly careful with all of this, especially in my situation where I am in a very small space and I could very well knock over this iron and burn the crap out of myself, but I will endeavor and hopefully not do that. So I'm gonna lay down. Gonna lay down my heat and bond where I know that I want it, and also find the words that I want to say. And the instructions on heat and bond, which you should try to make sure, especially the first time you use heat and bond, maybe less so successive times. But make sure that you get those instructions. Sometimes they get thrown out when you have them cut at the store or by the yard. Usually the employees should ask you if you want the instructions. It's like a plastic piece that comes and runs down the center of the bolt and has instructions like every little distance, and it will tell you how to use it. Also, you can also buy heat and bond by the package, and that will also have the instructions on it, so hang on to those if you have not used it a lot, just to remind yourself. I have used heat and bond a ton at this point, so I am aware. And what you do is you set your iron down for 10 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you lift it up and you move to the next spot. You do not move your iron around because that can move the piece around. After a certain point, it sort of becomes okay, but it is not recommended by the instructions. We'll put it that way. And this will be incredibly hot, obviously, because you just ironed it, but you can sort of tap at it and check that you got it all the way down. And I have. So I'm going to move on to my next piece. And just try to get it as matched to the other one as possible. If that's not your vision, you don't have to try to match it exactly. Alright, and I have both pieces of my heat and bond adhered to the wrong side of my fabric now. Ideally, you would leave your ironing setup on and go cut these out. I, however, am actually going to unplug my iron and move it away from me, just because this is my workspace right now, and this iron does not need to have its cord going across my legs while I'm trying to cut something out. So I am going to be better safe than sorry. So something I like to do before this next step is to actually make my little cut that's going to be my overlap cut. So just demonstrating that on this one. And just right to the center, but not past it. And so we will be able to tell where that cut is even when we take these marks away, as we are about to do. And so what you do here is whatever you need to do to get that paper backing right off of there. There is another layer. Well, there's the other side of the glue, which is also heat reactive and will glue itself with the power of the iron again. So I have my buckram, and I'm just positioning it on my buckram just to take up the least amount of space, creating the least amount of waste, hopefully. And then it is the same as when we put the heat and bond onto the fabric. You hold down for 10 seconds. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Kind of missed that piece, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can't see it from this angle quite, but I can see where that cut is. So I'll actually have a very clear marker of where to cut after I've cut out the buckram circle so that I can then do my overlap. Boop. So just the same process on the second piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I hate counting the Mississippis, but just counting to 10 a little bit slowly seems to work out pretty well. It's not 100% an exact science. You just don't want to burn your fabric, but you do want it to stick. And now I'm gonna turn off my iron again, and then cut out my buckram pieces. So I have my hot glue gun heated up and ready to go. And as you are hopefully able to see here, I actually did a little bit of pre-planning on where I'm gonna place some of my embellishments on this. This is really as far as I got, and then I kind of wanted to like put it together to actually see how it's gonna end up. So I'm just gonna carefully move the stones. And these are all from my acrylic collection, because they are all quite cheap and therefore easy to get a hold of. Well, and easier to get a hold of in general. None of my local craft stores actually sell resin gemstones. They only sell acrylic. But I have some laid out here to, just off camera actually, to decorate after that, to kind of see what I want going on. So I haven't actually done this part. I cut out the circles, but I did not cut my center cut because I wanted to show you, there you go, that you can see where my fabric's already been cut. And I'm just going to cut along that line. Sometimes holding it up to a light can help. And do the same on this one. All right. And then I hot glue my pasties and have had zero issue with it so far. They don't pop apart or anything. But so you overlap the amount of cone you want, really. It doesn't take a whole lot, for me anyway. This is another point where you're gonna wanna like hold up to yourself and like see where you're comfortable, what you like the look of. I usually end up overlapping just that much. And then what I end up doing is gluing down the inside here, just straight down that line. I'm gonna do this as safely and as visibly as I can. I may sacrifice some visibility for safety. Just sort of smushed all up in there. And I personally don't feel this at all when I'm wearing these. The ridge of hot glue just doesn't bother me at all, but I also try to smooth it out as much as possible. So it's just a big, smooth swath of glue. You know, everyone is different. You may really feel it on your skin, so you may want an additional fabric liner of some sort, but usually the smoother the surface is, the better it's going to be for tapes and glues to adhere to. That is a case in which maybe you might want an additional layer of like a vinyl or something. I'm going to let that dry enough so that it holds. And then I just get some glue up in here to get that flap on the top laying down. And just usually as little as possible so that you're not getting too much squeezed out the seam there. Sometimes I do get a little bit out the seam, but I do my best. And if my best ends up looking, you know, horrible, I throw it out. So there is one. And then roughly the same amount of overlap on the other. Just so that they look as close to each other as possible. You're almost always going to get them looking a little bit different from each other. And that's actually what's beautiful about handcrafted goods, in my opinion. The little discrepancies, the two pieces not being exactly a perfect match, not perfect copies of each other. It really shows the human handiwork going into a project. But then again, maybe I'm just justifying not being too much of a perfectionist. I wouldn't say I'm like anti-perfectionist. I definitely want perfection. I just won't always really go too far out of my way or get in too deep to have it happen. As you saw, this just popped open on me, so you really gotta make sure you're getting that glue where it will keep your pieces together. There we have our two mostly matching cones, and sometimes they will turn a little more ovular than circular. You just have to play around until you figure out what makes it click for you to make things different or accept them as they are. And my bottom layer is sticking out a little from my top layer on the bottom here. So I'm actually just gonna cut it a little bit to just give it a more even appearance. But the other side needs a little trim, but it turned out pretty good. Now, with these as your base, you are ready to move on to embellishing, and you might think, great, I'll keep the hot gun going. Don't. Unplug your hot glue gun. You're done with it. There is something that is actually much better for holding on gemstones, and it is called Gem Tack. This is made by the company Beacon. They also make Fabri-Tac. If you're sewers who know about Fabri-Tac, But this is gym tack. This is specifically for attaching embellishments such as rhinestones to fabric and other things, shoes, but shoes are made of fabric anyway, but you know, to fabric and projects and stuff. And this is gonna hold infinitely better than hot glue. I have seen the difference myself. I have an actual, I made the same set of pasties twice, but one is an upgrade. And the first one had hot glue, and I had a stone pop off at every performance I wore those to. And the second set has these, and not a single stone has ever popped off of it. So that's my personal testimony. This is non-toxic. E6000 will hold your stones. It will. But E6000 requires doing it outside, wearing a gas mask, because it is absolutely chock full of chemicals that cause cancer. This is perfectly safe, so I prefer it. I may lose a stone here and there, but generally I don't lose anything. So this is my glue of choice. I don't like to make the effort. It's really out of my way to put on a gas mask and go outside. So with our gym tech at the ready, here we go. Starting to do our embellishments. And this is, of course, part of the creative process. It's going to be part of your creative process. Whether you put stones around the edges, or you get the little sequins that are sewn together in a strip, or you get individual sequins and put them around this center, or you cover it in stones or sequins entirely, or you get some lace and you put some lace on the edges, or all of that is super up to you. But so with the gym tack, you need to squeeze out onto your embellishment just enough glue so that it'll come up around the edges. I know that probably sounds scary, but here's the thing. I guarantee you, gym tack dries crystal freaking clear. Like, sure, it's all white now, but it will actually dry crystal clear. It won't make it rhinestones cloudy. The stuff around the edge won't be noticeable at all. It's absolutely magical, is what it is. And there are all kinds of tools to make your gluing more precise. I do not have, but will be purchasing ASAP, what is known as a rhinestone picker, and it's actually just a wax pencil. I've also seen people do it with the wax off of the little mini cheese wheels, the little Baybel mini cheese wheels. You take it and you like mold it up real nice and you stick it on the end of a pencil, and then you can pick up your gemstones on the end of the pencil and then place them onto glue on your piece. But for now, I'm using my good old-fashioned fingers. So I started to say in my camera stuff, there are also systems of syringes that actually enable you to squirt out like smaller amounts of glue for very precise gluing, so that can really help. So in the meantime, I ended up with these are what I pre-planned. I haven't decided what else is going on these yet, but you can see how I have glue just coming up on the edges there. But I asserted that Gym Tack dries crystal freaking clear. So I want to show you a project that I've been working on lately with Gym Tack. This shoe is for one of my acts. I performed this act before. I couldn't afford to stone the shoe at the time, so I just painted it and went on with it painted. But I'm started stoning it recently, and if you notice, these gemstones are gorgeous, absolutely, and the glue you can't even see. You literally have to be this close to even tell that there's pieces of glue coming up. So yes, you're this close, you can see it, but I bet you can't even hardly tell on camera. So you can't tell on camera, you can't tell from 3 feet away, or up to 5 feet away, or as tall as a person is, that's how far away they will be from your shoes at pretty much all times. And even if you're on stage and they're perfectly level with your feet, because of the way stages and audiences work sometimes, they will never see it because they will be so busy looking at the dazzle. So honestly, Gym Tack is magical. I will probably do more to these, and I will make that addendum. I'm not gonna make you sit here while I puzzle out, do I want this stone here or that stone here, although I do see a stone I missed that I intended to put on this one to match this one. So I'm gonna do that right now. But I don't want to sit, I don't want 20 minutes of footage of me just hemming and hawing about what stones I want to put on these random Hello Kitty pasties. So I will further include wearing instructions on these, because obviously these don't just magically stick to your chest. So we will be going over that as well in the next segment. So I am filming this last bit on a different day, but here is the finished product of what I've been working on in this video. And I promised you a little section on wearing pasties, how to secure your pasties. So this is that section of the video. So I usually use tape, and there are various kinds of tape that are acceptable for this. I have a lot of friends that use wig or toupee tape or even carpet tape that are very strong. A lot of that is for folks with heavier boobs, just because, or the heavier your pasty is. But it seems that folks with larger boobs frequently find they need stronger tape. That's just something that I've noticed. What I personally use, most of the time I've been using this Hollywood fashion tape. And it's just some like little tape that's meant to like keep your bra strap from moving and all of that, and it works excellently. I've also used some fashion tape, garment tape from this brand, Dritz, which makes a lot of sewing supplies and all of that. You can also use glues like eyelash glue. Spirit gum would be like if nothing else is sticking for you. But before you like went to that extreme, make sure that you're wiping off with like rubbing alcohol beforehand, because it just cleans up the skin real nice and makes your tape better able to stick to your skin. So do that, then put it on and see if you're still having the same problems, and then decide if you need to go up to the next strongest thing, because spirit gum, I've heard, is not fun to get off. Like, spirit gum is what you would use for like prosthetics, like plastic wounds and stuff too, so it's pretty strong stuff. But yeah, so you would just take a couple pieces of tape, or this is the way I do it. Just gonna go ahead and demonstrate. And I do one on top, and then also a strip on the bottom. Not quite that big. There we go. That's the... Golly. I like the little gun dispenser that the Hollywood fashion tape comes in. And they do, of course, make like specifically pasty tape that you can order online. These are things that I can get in Joann's, or actually this I bought in Ulta Beauty, but you can find both of these in Joann. I just always forget to order pasty tape before I've run out, so I have to go out and get what I can get in my area. So, little strip on the top, little strip on the bottom. That way you're generally missing the main part of your nipple. I don't have an issue with pulling the tape off if it does land like on my nipple, because I just don't, it doesn't hurt me, not much anyway, enough that I can stand it. But for some people that's like not good, and you really want to make sure you're missing that area. But you just take the backings, you take the little paper backing off, and how you would want it to sit, you would line it up and just stick it on. Yeah, it's funny because I'm doing it on my shirt. But yeah, and I found that the tapes actually stay really nicely, especially if you swab with alcohol first. Another thing you can do if you're going to be using like different tapes or glues, you can actually cover the back of this in hot glue, and sometimes it helps different glues and tapes like actually keep purchase on the pasty itself, because sometimes you'll get where it's not that it's not sticking to your skin, like your tape or glue is sticking to your skin but not to your pasty. But yeah, eyelash glue. Did I say eyelash glue? A lot of girls use eyelash glue actually to put these on. But yeah, sometimes that's something you just need to experiment with in private before you do any performances, if you intend to do any performances, or maybe you're just using it in private and it's not that big a deal if it does pop off. But yes, that's, in case you've ever wondered, that's how we do it. It's generally tape or glue. Because I know I've had a few people like ask me that. They're like, I don't understand, how do they stay on? And I'm like, really strong tape. And they're like, oh, see, that makes sense? But you don't necessarily think about it when you're just like, they're just on there. What are they doing? So that's the end of part 1 of this series. Part 2, we're actually going to move on to, we're still going to be making circular pasties, but we're going to talk about how to add tassels to your pasties. So I will see you in part 2. Bye, guys!